but good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. Good whenever you are listening. You know the lighter is flicking and the deals are trickling in. This is the free agency deconstruction episode. AJ, what is up?
Not much, besides, really the main thing on my personal agenda has just been following all these NFL moves. And you and I, we've been obviously partaking in content. We had that great guest episode with Eric Romoff. Beard God. And we've been putting out a ton of content, and in the meantime, we haven't really gotten to sat down, just the two of us, and discuss what's been going down throughout NFL free agency. But before we really get into the nitty-gritty, Ben, how are you doing, man?
Well, not great, because I just ripped off the Lil Wayne lighter flick off a rip, and I couldn't even get a comment for it. Like, what?
That's fair.
All the work I do around here
totally,
that
was pure
improv. The coldest open of my entire podcasting career.
Yeah, that was pretty diesel. I'm not gonna lie. It was almost so unexpected that I was just like, I'll let it rock. I don't really. The lighter flick speaks for itself. It always comes before historic pieces of audio, and that's what this episode's going to be as well. So, got nothing else to say on that. Otherwise, anything you want to say to the listeners, because we've got a full agenda of fantasy relevant moves.
We got a thick episode for y'all today. Jordan Davis thick. So the format of today's episode is we're just going to be running down the lists of any notable transactions. We're not talking about you, Cedric Wilson in Miami. You don't get time on the Pylon Dons. We're not talking about you, J.D. McKissick. We know that Antonio Gibson's going to be all right. And even if you don't think so, he's going to be. We're talking big names, big ballers, people who can afford the shoes, back when people used to reference LeVar Ball. And we're just going to talk about our impacts on it. We're going to round table 2 to 3 minutes a topic. But it's funny, though, because, AJ, you were talking about how we haven't really had a time to sit down and do this. I was at, a St. Patrick's Day party this past weekend, and, an old high school buddy was like, hey, man, I know you do the podcast. What do you think about all these moves? And I'm just like, holy crap, man. I haven't talked about any of these moves. So it's time to give the people what they want to hear. Shout out Framingham. Shout out 508. And can we get the ball started? Wait, no, Ben, you're moving too fast. This is why we should have coffee before we record. We didn't. Brain is moving a little slow. You need to follow us at Ben the Pylon Don, at AJ the Pylon Don. It's down below. You see it, me pointing on YouTube. And at the Pylon Dons on Instagram and at Pylon Dons on Twitter. Shout out Verse Gaming. They're our sponsor. We love them. They're wonderful. And now, without further ado, holy moly jabroni, Devonte Adams is a Las Vegas Raider. What do we do about this, AJ?
So in the Twitter community, there's a lot of rumblings that this somehow is supposed to help Hunter Renfrow. And I was looking because I was like, maybe it will. Maybe Derek Carr is going to just light the world on fire. And I think he's capable of doing that, especially now that he has Adams. Waller will be fully healthy. Renfrow came into his own. But Carr just threw for the most attempts of his entire career last year with 630. To put it in perspective, the 4 years prior, 3 of those 4 years, he didn't break 520 passing attempts. And then in 2019 was his highest other than 2021 with 552. So I definitely think Carr can match that 630 that he put up last year. I think the Raiders really are a pass-first offense. Josh Jacobs, to end the season, got a lot of targets as well. Those might not be there now that Devonte Adams is there. Hunter Renfrow got 120 targets. This was in lieu of Darren Waller not being fully himself. Those might not be there, because when we're talking about Devonte Adams, we are talking about an 150-plus target generational receiver that has really put up 2 of the 3 best fantasy seasons, or 2 of the 5 best fantasy seasons in recent memory in back-to-back seasons. So when we're looking at Adams, for me, Adams is the type of talent that remains unchanged, especially because it's not like Carr I get it. Rodgers to Carr is a downgrade. There's no disagreement there. Derek
Wait,
Carr's
bro, what are
very
you
good.
talking about, bro? Derek Carr's like the greatest quarterback who ever lived.
Hey, but the Fresno State connection will reign very true. I have no worries about Devonte Adams. Darren Waller will be healthy, so my big loser is Hunter Renfrow and a little bit of Josh Jacobs. And for winners, not really much else. Maybe the running backs in Green Bay, but across the board, I don't see a clear cut like this guy to the moon situation.
Okay, so I'm about to ramble because not to say I disagree with everything you just said, because I think a lot of things you say have a lot of merit, and I'm probably gonna make like a dreidel and spin it with my own words. Dreidel wasn't the original word I was looking for. That was my Jewish heritage coming out. What's on the other? It'll come to me. Bad reference. More coffee. So a couple things. Just running this like down the list. For me, Devonte Adams. Honestly, a slight drop, I think, in the quarterback play and more target competition he's ever going to see. Devonte Adams is still a locked and loaded top 6 receiver. I'm going to take Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson before him next year in drafts, which I don't think is very controversial. But I think beforehand, I would have rather waited and took Adams as opposed to reaching on Jamar Chase. Like in like my ideal world, like if I could pick at like the 9 spot and take Adams and get a better running back in round 2, or like take Chase at 6 and like get like a worse running back in round 2, I'd feel better with the Adams trade-off. Now I think Adams is going to be a high second-round pick, and I think rightfully so. For Darren Waller, I'm really, really excited because he's going to be healthy, and he's not going to be double covered. We've never seen Darren Waller not double covered. That is exciting news. While I think those 16 target games that Darren Waller occasionally gets are going to be fewer and further between, I think he's going to be the most efficient we've ever seen. He's probably going to. It's really weird because the tight end position is the most competitive it's been in ages, which is really strange to see from a fantasy perspective. But I think Darren Waller is absolutely going to have his hat in the ring. This is absolutely a detriment to Hunter Renfrow, and additionally, because I still find him to be fantasy relevant, got to talk about Bryan Edwards as well. For Renfrow, my concern is that underratedly, Devonte Adams does a ton of work in the screen game and in the short game, and that's where Hunter Renfrow thrives. And you know, Hunter Renfrow finishes the PPR wide receiver 12 last year. AJ checked the note sheet. That's off the dome. It's not even there because I'm nice like that. But anyhow, yeah, he's going to lose a lot of his screen work and a lot of his short passing game work, and he was getting all that volume without Darren Waller back. So I'm going to be pretty concerned about Hunter Renfrow as anything more than a flex play next year. And I think when we were sipping the Josh Jacobs to the moon Kool-Aid, because that was super, super exciting, now I think it's more about Josh Jacobs is really good and kind of is what he is, almost like a little bit below that Antonio Gibson tier at this point, because while they're like, there's never going to be any stack boxes against Josh Jacobs with Darren Waller on the field, and now there certainly won't be. Excuse me, but similar to Renfrow, a little bit less of the screen work, a little bit less of the checkdowns. Like every reception matters, especially at the running back position. When like it's not like Devonte Adams. If Devonte Adams lost 5 targets, he'd still have 100 bajillion targets. If Josh Jacobs lost 5 targets, that could be 10% of his targets on the year. This is relevant. And then lastly, I am super, super excited about Green Bay. I haven't done my redraft or my dynasty rankings fully updated, but AJ Dillon and additionally Aaron Jones have both absolutely gone up. I don't want to dig too deep into the dirt, but I'd be very hard pressed to believe that they're both not going to be RB2s or better next year. AJ Dillon had that mini breakout when Aaron Jones was gone. AJ, credit to you as well, because I know you were running your mouth in the group chat about these Aaron Jones splits when Devonte Adams is not on the field. So I really think that this Green Bay offense is going to be rookie wide receiver who isn't going to be great till late in the year. Aaron Rodgers dumping it down to Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon running the ball on every single first down. And I think that if you haven't bought Aaron Jones or AJ Dillon yet, I would recommend you go do so at whatever their current cost is, because I think that cost is going to be pretty reasonable, and both of their prices are going to go up regardless of who they bring in at receiver. So
yeah, Green Bay is not necessarily done making moves is the main thing. So I didn't want to pound the hammer on these 2 running backs, but I did want to mention that clearly they are trending.
I'm ready
to
pound the hammer because I believe in both of their talent. We have slept on Aaron Jones for years, and he's probably going to be the most talented receiver Not talented receiver. They draft a first round guy, which I think they will. He wouldn't be the most talented receiver, but he'd be the most talented returning receiver. And that's relevant. He's going to be the guy coming into camp that Aaron Rodgers is going to have faith in. He's the guy who's been in the offense before. And additionally, regardless of what they do at receiver, they could bring in a first round guy and sign 2 free agents, and none of those guys are going to be as good as Devonte Adams off rip. So I really think A.J. Dillon, and look, Matt LaFleur likes to run the ball. We know this about him. I think A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones have both seen an absolute increase in value. And underratedly, we've seen 2 running backs succeed before in the same offense. I'm looking at you, Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram in 2017, 2018.
16.
You still get my point. You knew what I was referencing. You see what I'm getting at.
I just wanted to remind you how long ago Mark Ingram was a Saint, because it's been a minute.
Dude, I'm so tired. My perception of time is honestly pretty thrown off. The fact that I'm just pulling out these stats is good enough for me. And wait, when we get on to our next topic, AJ, do you mind if I just preface this next topic real quick?
No, go ahead.
So obviously this next player we're going to discuss is a very controversial, and AJ and myself, like all of you out there, all have our own opinions about what happened, what's right, what's just, what's fair. And we can't control these things. So like every other player who faces some sort of controversy, no matter what it is, we're keeping it to fantasy football with Deshaun Watson. I certainly have my opinions, and I'm not thrilled, but he's the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. So AJ, what do we do about this?
Yeah, I think your prefacing was very well put. We all have our opinions about the way not only the Cleveland Browns, but the entirety of the NFL handled the situation.
100%.
But we're talking about the fantasy situation, because that's what you guys came here to listen to. And Deshaun Watson and Amari Cooper have teamed up on the Cleveland Browns, and nobody else is really there. I mean, Jarvis Landry was cut. We discussed him as a cut candidate earlier in the offseason. He is no longer with the team. Odell Beckham, of course, traded midseason last year. Amari Cooper wasn't the volume guy that we've seen him be last year. A lot of that had to do with the emergence of Tony Pollard as a complement to Ezekiel Elliott in that backfield. Dalton Schultz also emerging as well. But Dallas did finish 4th in passing attempts. There was a lot of competition, but Dallas finished 4th in passing attempts. Obviously, this offense is going to be seeing a total overhaul with a brand new QB that brings a lot more of a dynamic element to the field than Baker Mayfield. But it's outside of Amari Cooper, you've got a tagged David Njoku, Anthony Schwartz, and Donovan Peoples-Jones. So I think Amari Cooper definitely sees a huge uptick in value. Strictly from a floor standpoint, I don't really think his ceiling has changed. Not an indictment on Amari Cooper by any chance. I just think the guys above him kind of are in a different class and have remained in their ceilings pretty much unfazed when we're talking about those elite talents in the NFL. What does this mean for Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt? I'm still wrestling with this. I'm really curious to see what you have to say. I don't think Kevin Stefanski is just going to completely abandon the run. That's not the type of player that he is. So I don't really necessarily think that Nick Chubb is going to see a downwards trend. I do think Kareem Hunt could see a little bump in value. I think he could be used in a very versatile way. They did discuss last year using him in the slot. Kevin Stefanski discussed that sort of. It was coach speak, training camp speak, what you will. We did see Kareem Hunt used with both Chubb on and off the field. Now Stefanski's not going to really have the choice to not use Kareem Hunt, because he might be the second best receiving option on that team. I love DPJ and Njoku as much as the next guy. Kareem Hunt is a 27-year-old back with tons of receiving experience, and I think he might get seriously involved as well in this offense with how it's currently built. Could they bring in another weapon? Absolutely. There is a lot of offseason left ahead of us. But for right now, I think a big bump to Cooper and a big bump to Kareem Hunt.
So I like a lot of things you said. I have a couple nitpicks, and I also have a little bit of my own ironic passing takes. Because last summer, AJ, if you remember correctly, there were 2 guys who I thought had really big shots to outproduce their ADP. And they were Amari Cooper and Nick Chubb. I wanted them everywhere. Everywhere I wanted them. And it's funny. So just as like a reminder, because I feel like we haven't talked about Deshaun Watson in a fantasy aspect in a really long time. 3 quarterback 5 finishes in a row. That's who Deshaun Watson has been. He's been the 5th best fantasy football quarterback pretty much on an average of any given Sunday. So a couple things to note is Watson isn't, this could be a controversial take, but like think about Amari Cooper before CeeDee Lamb was in town. Watson is probably about as good as Dak Prescott was before the injury when it was just Amari Cooper in Dallas. Something to think about when Amari Cooper was at that low end wide receiver 1, high end wide receiver 2. Amari's a little bit older now, but Amari Cooper's played with a good quarterback before. Deshaun Watson's played with good wide receivers before. What I think is really interesting with this mix is I don't think that Watson, and this is a little controversial, this is spicy, or Cooper for that matter, have ever been part of an offense that's going to be this run heavy. I think that like as good as Deshaun Watson is, and they're going to throw the ball a ton, don't get me wrong, because they sold their soul and all of their money to go get this guy to play quarterback. Deshaun Watson is going to throw the football, but this is a run-first team. And Nick Chubb is an unbelievable running back, and I don't think Deshaun Watson has ever played on a team that's going to run the ball 45% of the time probably. Like, they're still not deep at receiver, and I really think that Amari Cooper, additionally, like how you were saying how you don't think his ceiling is elevated, I think there's a chance it is actually, and the reason I think that Amari Cooper's ceiling could still be high is because I saw it last year. I mean, Amari Cooper flashes. For him, it's just about stringing together multiple games. So if Amari Cooper right now, if they're ever stacking boxes to stop Nick Chubb, that play action to Amari Cooper, that is so game over. He's going to have all these big games, and they'll probably be streaky at times. But for Nick Chubb, on the other hand, if teams decide to not stack the box against Nick Chubb is going to run absolutely wild. So I really think that this offense is going to be dynamic from a fantasy football perspective. I should say that given Watson's situation and along with Cooper and Chubb's age, almost none of them for me are actually dynasty buys, as much as all of these guys are people that I'm going to want in best ball and redraft leagues, which is like a kind of a weird take because Nick Chubb is 26 years old now, a lot of carries on him, probably going to run him into the ground these next season or two. Amari Cooper has been around the mill. Like they could barely get anything for him in trade comps. Like I really think that this is going to be an elite offense, but not for the foreseeable future, like 3-4 years down the line. Like for an example, like a Cincinnati or a Kansas City or a Buffalo. So that's kind of my take on the situation. If that makes sense.
Yeah, they're not this cornerstone team in the AFC because of these moves. The age plays a huge factor in that. But overall, I can't necessarily watch them bring in not only a quarterback of this caliber of talent, but a player of this caliber of controversy and not be expected to use him. Deshaun Watson does have a history of running the ball. He also does have a history of supporting top 3 fantasy receivers. And Amari Cooper is no DeAndre Hopkins in Houston, and we know that. But
yeah,
it's no small potatoes that he is the only guy on that roster with anything remotely close to an 1,000-yard season, let alone the 5 that Amari Cooper has on his resume. So I don't want that to be overstated.
Yeah, of course. Also, I realized I totally forgot to just check in on Kareem Hunt. I really like your call there that he could certainly see an uptick in receiving work. I think one thing to note also, and we'll certainly talk about this later, I think that Cleveland is not done making moves. One thing that I noticed that Cleveland did not trade their second-round pick in this year's draft. They still have a top 100 pick, and they have a glaring friggin' hole at wide receiver. That is not lost on me whatsoever, just my own opinion. And like Will Fuller, who we may talk about later, is still out there, and he obviously has ties to Watson. So I don't know if they're done making moves, but what I would just say is that this fantasy offense is certainly improved.
Yeah.
I think the biggest winner could honestly be Nick Chubb. Unless you've been someone holding Watson and now he's playing. Like, I think I could be more into Nick Chubb never facing a stacked box than Amari Cooper playing with a quarterback that he's played with equally talented ones before.
I don't think Dak Prescott is as talented as Deshaun Watson. But
pre-injury, Dak Prescott was really good, dude. He was on that crazy tear before he got hurt. He was the quarterback 1 before he got hurt.
All right, from a
Think on it.
fantasy
You don't need to.
perspective
You don't
or
need to
from
make
an
a think now. Table
NFL?
this.
All right, I'm not going to get into this right now. We're going to keep it moving. There's way too much on the docket. We'll make these roundtables a little bit quicker, but we did want to get we wanted to air our laundry on arguably the two biggest moves of the last 2 weeks through this free agency period. We've got some receiver movement that we want to discuss as well, bringing it back to receivers after discussing Devonte Adams. Allen Robinson signs a 3-year, $45 million deal with the Los Angeles Rams. Robert Woods is traded for a 5th-round pick to the Tennessee Titans, who recently cut Julio Jones. Ben, right off the bat, what was your knee-jerk reaction to this?
So I warmed up to the Allen Robinson take. Full transparency, when Allen Robinson signed, I was like, whatever. $15 million, Nelson Aguilar money. Robert Woods is still in town. They love Odell. They want to bring him back. Look how good Van Jefferson's been. I'm like, okay, this guy will be whatever. He had a terrible season in Chicago, mind you, last year also. And then there's reports that Odell's not going to be back. And then they do trade Robert Woods. And then suddenly Allen Robinson is a locked and loaded top 36 receiver with plenty of upside for more. That's how that works for me. Did you see that any differently?
No, not even a little
I wasn't
bit.
like it's game on. When Allen Robinson signed a deal, I was.
But I think plenty of upside is a little bit too rich for me. I get the quarterback situation in Chicago wasn't all flowers and butterflies or whatever, but you don't accidentally finish outside of the top 80 fantasy receivers over 12 games of a season. I don't care if you didn't play the full season. If you play over 12 games, and yeah, he's got these top 10 finishes on his resume as recently as 2020, but we haven't seen Allen Robinson ball out in over a year, and it'll be almost 2 years when he takes a snap week 1 for the LA Rams. I get you put money, and following the money is really important with stuff like this, especially for a veteran receiver going to a veteran team, the Super Bowl champion as well. But I wouldn't be surprised as well if this Rams offense ran a lot more through Cam Akers, and if they potentially were not done bringing in weapons as well, if they don't plan to bring back Odell Beckham, because they did have a hole at receiver during that hiatus between when Robert Woods was injured and Odell Beckham was suiting up for them. So I don't think the Rams are entirely finished. I get that they don't have a lot of cap space, but cap is a myth in the NFL if you're new here. So I'm not as high on Allen Robinson as you might be. I'm still a little bit hesitant because I just want to watch what the Rams do. Robert Woods might not be fully healthy, and that's probably why the Rams shipped him off to Tennessee for as cheap
Probably a
as they
6th-round
did.
pick also.
But when you're looking at a guy like Robert Woods, it's not like he is some explosive player. I think he can definitely be a security blanket for Ryan Tannehill. And they also brought in Austin Hooper as well. It could be an AJB, Jonnu Smith, Corey Davis-esque situation when they're all healthy and on the field.
So one question about the Allen Robinson thing for you. Would it help if I made a false equivalency that Sean McVay brought Odell Beckham Jr. literally back from the dead? And before last season, I probably would have rather had Allen Robinson than Odell. Would any blind faith in Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford do anything to get you to budge on Robinson? It's okay if not. I don't think he's a top 12 guy. I don't think he's a top 24 guy. I have him as a wide receiver 3 with upside for more on a weekly basis.
My only concern with that is the role that Odell Beckham played as opposed to what Allen Robinson played. Odell Beckham, we knew he was athletically capable of what he was able to do for the LA Rams. I at least still had faith in Odell Beckham, the athlete, and Odell Beckham, the player. And I thought that Cleveland was an absolute atrocity of a situation for him. Chicago is not necessarily much better, but we watched Allen Robinson put up 2 wide receiver 1 seasons under the same head coach. He just put up the wide receiver 81 season.
True.
So it's not the same situation necessarily for me. Whereas with Odell, we saw him hit Cleveland, the drop immediately started, and it never really flared back up.
I mean, fair enough. And like, I believed in Odell the whole time, so just check the receipts. Everyone knows it. I loved Odell
That's a
Beckham
good
Jr.
one.
Yeah,
That's a good
yeah.
one.
And I'm kind of, to be honest, with Robert Woods, I've loved Bobby Backtrees forever, but I kind of view him as this unexciting option in Tennessee now. I think he'll be fine. He's a guy you're going to take in the first 10 rounds of your draft. Not looking to acquire him in Dynasty coming off an injury. He'll honestly probably be better the following season if he can make it to his second season in Tennessee, just from the stance that he'll be fully back because we want guys in that second year after injury. Look at your Cooper Kupps. Look at Cortland Sutton this year with Russell Wilson, but not as much as Jerry Jeudy. But anyhow, back on topic, is that he's coming off the injury in a new and a worse offense. And like, it's going to be hard for me to have Robert Woods the top 36 guy, as crazy as that sounds.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you one bit. I think that just about does it for this topic. Real quick, now we'll start to get in some of the smaller moves, but still very fantasy relevant guys. The Bucs bring in Shaq Mason and Russell Gage after Tom Brady announces his return. Apparently, reports are coming out that Russell Gage was a direct Tom Brady recruit. He will likely.
So was Mohamed Sanu, though, so let's not hold our breath. That's true. You know that? That's true. Brady wanted that deal, which is
that's bonkers. Wow. Even the best miss sometimes.
I'm triggering myself thinking about it. Why did I even bring that up? Now I'm in like a bad mood about it. Why did I talk about the Patriots trading a second-round pick for Mohamed Sanu? If you're on YouTube, look at my face. It matches.
That just cheered me up. No. You were looking out for me there for sure.
I'm taking off my sweater. I'm gonna die of heat exhaustion.
I legit think that Russell Gage is going to be. This is a hot take, by the way. He's going to be in that Chris Godwin role until Chris Godwin is 100% healthy. And
what if I told you it's not a hot take and I like it and agree with you and I think he's a screaming buy low? How would that make you feel good? Because
I mean, if we're talking about Russell Gage, he put up 7 double-digit weeks in 13 games played in a putrid Falcons offense. He really started to make it work, albeit it came on quite a bit of volume. He had 3 double-digit target games in that time frame. But Russell Gage is no stranger to production. He also, in 2020, had quite a few games alongside Calvin Ridley, playing at a flex low-end wide receiver 2 on a weekly basis level. I don't think it's that unheard of where we watched Tyler Johnson absolutely stink. We didn't really see much, if anything, of Jalen Darden for the entirety of the season. Chris Godwin is hurt. Antonio Brown walked away in dramatic fashion, as Antonio Brown does. Robert Gronkowski has not been re-signed either. This is not the same passing offense in terms of the depth or the amount of target competition that a guy like Russell Gage would normally be facing if he joined this team. So at least for the early part of the season, if you're in Dynasty sitting on this guy, wait till he starts cooking and flip him. If you're in redraft, take this dude in the 13th round, and he could seriously help you win some of those weeks in weeks like 2 to 7. I genuinely believe that.
I fully agree with you. I'm going to go one step higher, and I'm going to say when Russell Gage's ADP climbs, climb with it. I think like when people are going to get smart to this, like Russell Gage was a diamond miner. He went to LSU. He's been pretty good for the Falcons at times. Like, I get his name's Russell, but he's really not a scrub like that. Like, I don't know. Like, if this dude's name was probably anything else, even if it was like Harold Gage, that sounds like a better receiver name. Like, just because he shares a name with the dude from Up doesn't mean he's not good at football. And I think he's going to do some really big things. Honestly, maybe throughout the whole season. Even if Chris Godwin comes back, we don't want those guys coming right back off the injury like we just said with Robert Woods. With Robert Woods. That's a little bit of the WRW, a little tongue twister. But AJ, do you know what the Shaq Mason signing meant to me?
What?
You know there's only one thing on my mind. You know this.
Are you going to talk about Ronald Jones?
Pick 27, baby. Breece Hall running behind. Shaq Mason. That's what's coming right now. That's what I'm feeling. They're beefing up this O-line to protect Brady. They haven't re-signed Leonard Fournette or Ronald Jones yet. It's Keyshawn Vaughn alone in the backfield. And come on, like, I understand Bruce Arians not perfect, but he wouldn't do that to us. Like, I really think that, like, Breece Hall or other rookie running back is going to come in and be in the best possible situation for a rookie running back to come into, maybe ever, potentially. Like, if you think about this team, like, explosive offense, sick defense, next to the GOAT, who's also older, so they're not going to want him to get sacked very often. Like, Brady checks it down all the time, additionally. Like, I'm just foaming at the mouth for whatever running back is going to return there. And if Leonard Fournette comes back, he's going to be an RB1 next year for sure. But I'm hoping for Breece Hall.
That would be sick. That would be sick.
When you think about how I just said it, like, this... Imagine Breece Hall running behind Tristan Wirfs and Shaq Mason. Like what? Like with Tom Brady, game over. Like come back next year. Like honestly, we should get the Tampa Super Bowl bets in now. Like they're gonna figure it out. Brady's not back for nothing.
All right, that is on the recording. Get the Tampa Super Bowl bets in now. Betting on Brady has never been necessarily a bad idea, so I don't hate it.
It's just responsible. Like, why invest in Bitcoin when you can place Tampa futures? You know,
same type of financial security for sure. Speaking of security, Juju Smith-Schuster definitely saved his fantasy football value after signing with the Kansas City Chiefs. This one, it's not rocket science. Juju trends upward, and I think everybody else is pretty much dead set the same, unless you think anybody is hurt. But I can't think of necessarily.
No one's hurt. First off, no one's hurt.
Hardman, he was hurt when he joined the NFL.
No one's hurt.
Okay.
Special teams ace Mecole Hardman because he's not a wide receiver anymore. But here's what I'd say. Is while Juju is certainly way up, maybe you just take your little profit and run, even in Dynasty. It's a 1-year deal. Didn't get a lot of interest league-wide. Still rumors that Kansas City still wants to add to that receiver room, even in the first or the second round of the draft. I think this is more so a Dynasty take. I think in redraft, Juju is actually going to be pretty respectable next year. But if someone offered me the 110 for Juju Smith-Schuster right now, even given his age and offense, I would take that, put my hands, cross my fingers by my back and go say no give backs and run for the friggin' hills. Maybe this could be me overthinking it, but I feel like for years we've been like, what if Juju goes to Kansas City? What if Juju goes to Kansas City? Well, he's here now, and his value's up in Dynasty. What are we going to do if Juju isn't very much better? What if he happens to be just Byron Pringle with a TikTok account? Like, it's just something to think about is all I'm saying. Like, I understand the past glory, and I like Juju a lot, but you can get a lot for him now. So I'm just spitballing that and tossing that out there.
Everybody loves to forget that Juju in 2020 was the wide receiver 17. I said it last offseason. He got hurt this year.
I remember.
He's now got a better quarterback with less target competition. I wouldn't even categorize Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce as target competition. Those are like as set in stone as the 10 Commandments that they're getting theirs. Juju's just getting. It's no longer Demarcus Robinson and Byron Pringle, who's now a Chicago Bear.
10 Commandments is like love thy neighbor, target Tyreek Hill. Sorry, keep going. I couldn't let that slide.
You're good. But it's not that smorgasbord of whoever throws on a Chiefs jersey and runs a 4.4 that day. It's now a real route runner who's got 3 top 20 wide receiver seasons in fantasy football, running alongside Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and getting the ball thrown to him by Patrick Mahomes.
Definitely.
As somebody who owns him in 2 dynasty leagues, I would rather get caught holding the bag after I waited out this injury and the downward trend that Juju's value has seen, rather than flip him for a late first rounder take a shot on a guy that could potentially miss and watch him go off on somebody else's roster after I tried to upsell right away.
I hear you. And I think it's just a difference in philosophy because I understand Juju can be really good. Like he was a wide receiver 7. He was a wide receiver 17. He is produced. This is not like me saying that Juju is bad. I think he could be really good, but I'm just really concerned about them drafting a guy. That's all. Like if Jahan Dotson is the pick at 30, that's not good news for Juju Smith-Schuster from a dynasty perspective.
But
that's all I'm getting.
Aren't dumb enough and have too much cap invested in this offense now to go and take another receiver. I get what you're
Clyde
saying.
Edwards-Helaire over Jonathan Taylor, so maybe we don't need to talk about intelligence too much.
Well, Clyde Edwards-Helaire over a lot of people besides Jonathan Taylor. There's the other 21 positions on the NFL field could have been addressed there, and I think the Chiefs have learned their lesson there. Keeping it moving, this will be pretty quick. Cordero Patterson returns to the Atlanta Falcons. Rashad Penny returns to Seattle. Rashad Penny had a historic end to the season for Seattle. Chris Carson is still dealing with that neck injury. Alex Collins is not fully healthy. DJ Dallas has not really been given the reins to at least handle any morsel of those carries. He is slightly involved in the receiving game. So with Penny, there was all this talk about, he could leave in free agency, 26-year-old running back, not a lot of wear and tear, just had a great end to the year. But he's back in Seattle, and he's no longer running next to Russell Wilson. So what do you think this means for him?
Dude, I am honestly, Rashad Penny is going to be why I don't sleep all week. Because if he went back to Seattle on a 1-year deal, and Russell Wilson was still there, I would tell you to grab this guy in the 6th or 7th round of every single draft and pray every single night to the fantasy football gods that he's healthy. And that's it. That would have been the story. But now with Russell Wilson not going to be back in Seattle, I think for Rashad Penny, it's a wait-and-see approach. I like it's a 1-year deal. I think he's going to come in shape. He certainly has something to prove. I like that he turned down more money elsewhere. But what I want to see is what they do with the 9th pick in the draft. If they take a tackle there and do something to bolster that offense, or even a center, even if Tyler Lindenbaum makes it to 9, if they bolster the offensive line, I'm going to be really into Rashad Penny, because that's what they're going to say to me is, we're going to try and win every single game this year on the back of Rashad Penny. If they bring in a Malik Willis or a Kenny Pickett or a Matt Corral at 9, I would not be very into Rashad Penny, because all I'm going to see is a lot of stacked boxes at a guy who it's in his best interest and he doesn't get hit very often. So on Penny, and you know, I love to make the first take. I was yelling Joe Mixon top 6 running back last week. A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones top 24 guys today. You got to wait and see on Rashad Penny. It's too fuzzy right now.
Yeah, and the Seahawks are the ultimate gray area. Sorry, I'll let you continue. We had Cordero Patterson on the docket as well.
Cordero Patterson. I like him a lot more now that Russell Gage is gone. I think he's going to have a role in the offense, and I think his role is going to be really, really unique. I think he's going to play the 50-50 role. He's going to be in the backfield on 3rd downs and passing downs, and he's going to be in the wide receiver sometimes as well. So I honestly think that ATL is still going to bring in more help at running back, and Cordero Patterson, they're just going to get him the ball 8, 9, 10 times a game and just see what happens with it. I think he's going to be a really safe and strong flex play. What about you?
I'm absolutely taking Cordero Patterson in like the 8th, 9th round of every redraft and best ball draft. If you've got him in Dynasty, I mean, you've got a 31-year-old running back in Dynasty, but he doesn't have that much wear and tear. Enjoy the season you're going to get, though, because he's going to have one of the safer floors of any skill position player in the NFL that isn't in an elite offense.
And before we move on, I actually just got a notification, and it's not overly significant, but because it's a fantasy viable guy, and I'm assuming you missed this because I was being a bad co-host and I saw a Twitter notification while we're recording. Jamison Crowder, too.
The Bills?
The Bills, yeah, 1-year deal, $4 million.
Oh, are you serious?
Wait, you called that? You didn't check?
No, I didn't look.
Yeah.
That's so funny. I was
Jamison
like,
Crowder
nice.
Who
the hell would sign Jamison Crowder, right? Like, it would be the same team that just cut Cole Beasley. Like, wait, there's Cole Beasley right here. Like, we got dollar store Cole Beasley in the back pantry. Hold up, let me go get that real quick.
We got Cole Beasley who can attend a team event in New York City.
That's woo. Ooh, that one is that'll be an all-timer right there. Cole Beasley attending team events.
That'll be cool. That'll be whatever. That'll be cool.
He'll Jamison Crowder. He'll have one of those weeks where you're like down really bad on the bye weeks, and you'll be like, "Can he get me 14? Can he hold it down?" And he probably.
I mean, he will. He will.
He probably would. So I don't necessarily hate the signing at all.
So hit me with your next topic, though. What do you want to talk about?
I think you know what I'm eyeing, bro. I think you gotta know. If I
you want to talk about sell A15?
No.
Oh, really?
I want to talk about Gerald Everett to the Chargers.
Yeah, that's sell A15. Look at the spreadsheet.
Who is sell A15?
Have you never looked at an Excel spreadsheet, dog? It's in column A, row 15. Look down.
Oh, I thought you said 815. I was like, I thought you were like referencing an area code, getting tricky with me. I was like, you didn't have coffee and you're pulling out these discrete number codes on air and just throwing me to the wolves. No, but Gerald Everett to the Chargers. 2 years, $12 million, $13.5 million is the max that he can earn. The tight ends that were currently on the roster prior to this signing were Donald Parham, Trey McKitty, Jared Cook, I believe, is a free agent.
Trey McKitty's never going to happen, is it?
I think after these 2 years, it's going to be an uphill battle for Trey McKitty. But let's focus on what Gerald Everett brings. I know you said you saw a very interesting statistic about the potential target upside for a guy like Everett.
Yeah, so shout out to Josh Larkey, who's one of my favorite analytics guys in the space. He's someone I certainly recommend everyone else listens to as well. He's great, puts on a lot of free content. So if you're out there listening, Josh, thanks for all you do. Josh tweeted, if he only got a 15% target share, 15% coming in 2 years, $12 million deal, 15% is not a very high target share. Gerald Everett would have gotten 101 targets in that offense last year. That is absolutely the threshold that you need to be an elite tight end for fantasy football purposes. 100 targets is generally what you're looking for, and Gerald Everett has a chance to get it. Look, Gerald Everett hasn't done it before. Off the top of my head, I don't believe he's been a full season tight end one. He's a very talented guy who's always been intriguing, but this could be his real shot. Tight ends break out later. He's 27, 28 now. He's really fast. He's really talented, and he's going to be in an offense with no eyes on him, and he has a real chance at the volume. I can't put him in my top 10 tight ends in good conscience because, like we said earlier with Darren Waller, the tight end position has never been this competitive, but he is absolutely in that 11 to 16 tier of guys who can totally make the leap. Like, Gerald Everett needs to be the second tight end you take on every single best ball team, and if you have him in Dynasty, you should absolutely hold him.
I was sipping the Chargers free agency landing spot Kool-Aid. And then in 2021, or last offseason, I should say, I was also sipping the Gerald Everett Kool-Aid because I didn't believe in D. Eskridge. I didn't really believe there was a pass-catching option out of this backfield. I thought we were going to see something out of Gerald Everett, and we did see his best statistical season, 63 targets, 48 receptions, right under 500 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Very pedestrian numbers when you read them out loud, but when you compare it to the other tight ends in the NFL and the target competition he was facing and how much worse the Seattle Seahawks were than advertised and expected, going from that to a team like the LA Chargers, who really only brought back Mike Williams and haven't done much else in the weapons department, they're really keyed in on keeping this defense as healthy and as stacked as humanly possible, as we can tell. I'm down for T11 Gerald Everett. I really don't think that is that far outside of the realm of possibility. Just in terms of the type of dynamic player he is over the middle of the field, Keenan Allen being on the wrong side of 30. Mike Williams obviously got his money. Austin Eckler is still getting his, but a very, very enticing fourth option for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And now to round out our news, we have 3 quarterback changes that are confirmed that we have to talk about today. Well, one of these changes is actually the same, but we thought it could have changed. 3 quarterback updates. No change, some changes, just updates. Wow, we are really running out of steam here. Okay, let's go, baby. Quarterbacks. We got Jameis back to New Orleans. We have second overall pick behind Marcus Mariota joining him in the NFC South in Atlanta. And then we have Matt Ryan to the Indianapolis Colts. Let's just go one by one. Let's start with Jameis and Mariota, then Ryan. AJ, talk Jameis to me.
This Saints team stinks, bro.
No, that's not what I'm gonna say. No, I'll let you finish your thing. But that's not my take.
I'm not a Jameis truther. He could barely eclipse 230 passing yards before he got hurt last year. We don't know if Alvin Kamara is going to be playing the start of the season. We don't know if the Saints are really in a position, as much as it might make sense to take a first-round receiver, to do that at the 18th overall pick with all this money they have tied up and guys that aren't really game winners or game changers on a week-to-week basis. They might really need to revamp this team from the trenches and from the secondary. So I think the Saints are going to have a very rude awakening. As bad as that division currently is, outside of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think the Saints are in for a very rude awakening next year, and unfortunately, it'll be at the expense of Jameis Truthers. What are your thoughts?
So I got a couple things. First off, and I got a hot take. It's going to make you smile. It's going to make your day better. Jameis Winston re-upping in New Orleans makes me think that Michael Thomas is going to be traded. I don't know where. I don't know when. But I don't think that Michael Thomas is ever going to suit up for New Orleans again. I said this a while back. If you remember, when he got injured, like when he wasn't playing the field, like, no, Michael Thomas is done there. No way. I think Michael Thomas, because the word was that if Deshaun Watson went to the Saints, Michael Thomas was going to show up. I'm willing to bet that Michael Thomas doesn't show up to camp. So here are my thoughts with New Orleans, is that I'm going to be back in, and I am ready to get hurt again on Marquez Callaway and Adam Troutman. I'm back for more. Bro. I'm Captain America. I can do this all day. Give me all the ugly targets. I want all the garbage time. I want Jameis Winston just throwing 70-yard bombs down 21-3 to Marquez Callaway, and I want those touchdowns on my fantasy team. These guys cost you nothing. Troutman and Callaway both have strong college production profiles. They can't really bring in any weapons, and even if they bring in a first-round receiver, Callaway and Troutman are just so cheap. They're worth nothing. I'm in a dynasty league, and I actually like Adam Troutman, and I've been trying to offer him to people in hopes that other people do as well because I need compensation. And everyone's like, Ben, I hate Adam Troutman. Get him out of my inbox. So all that tells me is that if you like me, also think that Adam Troutman is talented because his production profile and metrics are very similar to, I don't know, Dallas Goedert, like they've been saying for years on pretty much every show ever. I'm willing to buy back in on him in the last round of my fantasy draft. I'm ready to get hurt again. Hurt me.
I'm not ready to get hurt again.
I'm ready to get hurt again.
Clearly, Atlanta is, though, because they're going to be bringing in Marcus Mariota. This kind of does hurt Cordero Patterson just a tad. I do think Cordero Patterson, for the most part, his receiving upside will remain absolutely unchanged. I don't know what this means for Kyle Pitts.
I'm happy you said that because I was wondering that.
And I don't really think we are in a position right now to make that determination. There's just such a dearth of options in Atlanta now with Russell Gage gone as well. That Kyle Pitts is just going to get 145 targets. Whether they're good targets or whether they're just okay, Kyle Pitts is pretty darn good at football, and I think he'll make them work, and I don't really think we need to read into it. I don't think Marcus Mariota will be a top 20 fantasy quarterback anyways, so I'm pretty much done saying peace on that offense.
I'm going to dip my toe into the water of your
preferred. Disagreeing a lot more than I thought we were going to disagree today, man. I'm not going to lie.
Every time Marcus Mariota field, as abysmal as he's been, kind of like Taysom Hill, puts up the fantasy numbers. I think in Superflex leagues, I'm going to want some Marcus Mariota as my quarterback 3. Because you know what? He can't pass for anything. It's going to be quarterback draws and options on the goal line. He may run for 8-10 touchdowns. Like, seriously. I saw this great tweet before we hopped on the show, and it wasn't like anyone verified, like the name can't come to mind. I'm sorry, I'd cite it if I could. But they said, we're going to see the Falcons win one game, and Marcus Mariota is going to be the quarterback 12. And I was like, yeah, I could see that. Like, that's not the craziest thing I've ever seen. Like, worse guys than Marcus Mariota have given us fantasy production before. And the fact that he's playing and is such a dual threat, like, I'm open to it, especially in superflex leagues. I don't think in one quarterback leagues or even best ball for that matter, I'm going to be that interested. But like if you're on a superflex team and you need a prayer, like Marcus Mariota could answer that prayer. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, it'll definitely be a prayer. Matt Ryan to the Colts.
I'm excited.
I think this is.
Are we agreeing on this one? Are
big for Michael Pittman. I think this is big news for Michael Pittman.
Do you know what no one wants to talk about, bro? Is that Matt Ryan, like as bad as this offense was last year, he like low key wasn't that bad.
No, he wasn't, bro. They went 7-10. They were not that bad.
That's like Matt Ryan's good.
I mean, he made Olamide Zacchaeus, Cordero Patterson, Mike Davis, and a rookie tight end win some football games. There's something to be said about that. And now he will be handing off the ball to Jonathan Taylor and hopefully throwing the ball to some better options. I would love to see the Indianapolis Colts bring in a receiver at the 41st overall pick of the draft. No, I do not, unfortunately.
You don't think Julio reunites?
I think Julio is potentially done, but this is something that I will save for another day. Matt Ryan to the Colts, though. We watched what it was like for Phillip Rivers when he came to the Colts as a veteran in the twilight of his career. And while he didn't look his absolute best, some might say he looked arguably his worst. He was actually able to support multiple fantasy relevant options. I mean, some of them were streaming options, sure, but they were guys that you were seeing in other people's lineups in 12-team leagues quite often. Matt Ryan was doing that with way worse players and is now in a much better offense where he's not going to have to rely on his arm nearly as much. I mean, he's going to be playing with the RB1 in fantasy football, who remains completely unchanged, by the way. But I think this is big news. I think they are going to address the receiver position in the NFL draft as well. But I love this for Mike Pittman.
That'd be great if they did. I think that'd be awesome if they did. If they took like a Sam Howell and said, "Hey man, you have 2 years to sit behind this guy. Fill up his water bottles and listen to everything he says and does." Okay. One thing I also want to toss out there, and this could just be my absolutely blind Carson Wentz hatred, but this is an upgrade. Like, just straight up. Like, this is an upgrade. Like, Matt Ryan is not going to throw the same number of interceptions Carson Wentz threw. He's not going to choke games to the Jaguars in Week 18 with the playoffs on the line. I'm honestly, as like, you're a Jets fan, I'm a Patriots fan, I'm intimidated by this Colts team. This is a better Colts team than if they would have brought in Jimmy Garoppolo, and I'm excited to see what they do.
It's definitely a more dynamic, deep threat vertical offense, and they've really, really needed to be able to stretch the field. If they don't bring in Sam Howell at 41, please, 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 please bring in a receiver. And bring in George Pickens.
It'll be one or the other.
Bring in George Pickens, bro. That would be sick.
Bring in Sky Moore.
Anything is possible at that pick with this Matt Ryan acquisition. Honestly, good on the Colts. This was a good move. I was really happy.
So, do you have the superlatives in you? I know we're both running a little low on steam, but you got time for two superlatives?
15 seconds each. Raheem Mostert to Miami. If he's fully healthy, he is going to
We didn't give the people the prompt. You answered the question before the prompt.
Sorry. Favorite under-the-radar move.
So this is why I asked if we had the juice for it. That was an opportunity to back out if you weren't ready.
No. Raheem Mostert to Miami, my favorite under-the-radar move of the offseason for fantasy purposes. If he's healthy, he's played with Mike McDaniel before, he'll get schemed to take some big big plays to the house. That's all Raheem Mostert really does. That and shatter into a million pieces. But if he doesn't shatter into a million pieces, that's exactly what he's going to do for this offense.
Great. My favorite under the radar move is Duke Johnson, because Duke Johnson is really good at football and no one ever wants to give him a chance. And I think that Duke Johnson is not much worse than Devin Singletary, and he's going to be in a really good offense. And it's a 1-year deal. And it wouldn't surprise me if Duke Johnson was the backup and honestly earned a couple opportunities. Look what he did last year in Miami off the street. Dude came off the street and ran for 100 yards against the Patriots. I think he'll be okay in the Buffalo offense as a strong handcuff. AJ, one free agent you're waiting on to sign, and if you have a landing spot, feel free to share.
Will Fuller, underratedly, could go to the Colts with this recent Matt Ryan development. Field stretcher alongside Michael Pittman and co. would be really helpful, especially with Jonathan Taylor in that backfield. Another option, obviously, we were discussing this earlier, Cleveland with the Deshaun Watson ties. And I don't think he would hurt anybody's value wherever he goes. He is pretty removed from his most prolific season in fantasy, where he unfortunately was suspended for the remainder of the season due to performance-enhancing drugs. But yeah, he's definitely going to go somewhere, and I think it'll be Cleveland or Indianapolis.
That Will Fuller take was my best take ever. When I die one day and on my deathbed, they're like, Ben, what was your best fantasy football take ever?
That's what they're going to be talking about on your deathbed, your best fantasy football. Honestly,
I'm going to be like, in 2021, I told you to fade the guy who was really good when he was on steroids, and then he won't be good when he's off, and then just croak, and then it's just over. That's the last words right there. We're getting mortar on this Monday evening. That's when we're recording. The free agent I'm waiting to sign still is Jarvis Landry. I'm all about this Cleveland Exodus glow up. If Odell can do it, so can Jarvis Landry. I know he was banged up a little bit last year, but I think Jarvis Landry can sign an Indianapolis, a Green Bay, maybe even a return to Miami and just produce, because he's been really good for a long time. And he's been in an offense that wasn't really good with poor quarterback play when Baker Mayfield was hurt. No Baker slander on this show. And additionally, just a run-first offense. So I think that Jarvis Landry in the right offense has a little more juice in the tank, and you could squeeze out another flex season from him.
Yeah, emphasis on squeeze, because he does bring the juice to the table.
Ooh! I thought you were going to be like, oh, he's got the good hands. He squeezed the football.
No, that's Juice Landry, baby. But that's going to be doing it for the free agency breakdown. That Jamison Crowder news was a good time. I can't believe I guessed that right. Ben, I really liked that we didn't agree on everything, because with a lot of these moves, it's really easy to take the easy road. But we came in with some interesting perspectives. But I'm glad we both know it's wheels up for Mike Pittman. I'll see you in my next best ball draft when I try and take him inside the top 50, and we'll see how that goes.
Just send the link. I'll jump in. I got to take a shower and cook dinner, but I'll start drafting. I'll work quick. That's all we got for today. He is AJ Carrion. I am Ben Weiner. Duke Johnson is a Buffalo Bill, and we are out.